Welcome, friend. Let us hear the story of the student with 100 teachers.
There was once a kingdom where every village mastered one craft and knew it completely. Smiths beat iron until it forgot it had ever been ore. Weavers turned thread into cloth so fine that merchants 3 kingdoms away paid in silver just to touch it. A single road connected every village, winding through hills and along rivers, past wells worn smooth by centuries of rope. It never ended. It only ever continued. Along this road, one spring, walked a boy with nothing but a satchel and a question he could not yet name. He came first to a carpenter's village, where an old man took him in and taught him to read the grain of wood before he ever touched it with a blade. The boy was quick. Within a season, he could join 2 boards so tightly the seam disappeared. The carpenter smiled at this, the way teachers do, and said the boy had a gift. "Stay another season," the old man said. "There is more in a plank of wood than a season can teach." The boy smiled back. "There are other teachers waiting." The old man simply nodded and did not ask again. So the boy left. The blacksmith took him next and taught him to read fire the way the carpenter had taught him to read grain. When the metal was ready to bend, when it would break, when it wanted rest. The boy learned this too, faster than the blacksmith's own sons. And when the blacksmith praised him, the boy thought of the stargazers on the hill 3 villages further, and wondered what they might show him that iron could not. So he left again. The monk took him after that, and taught him to sit in silence until the silence stopped being empty. This one took longer to learn, and the boy left it half learned, the way he had begun to leave most things. And so the seasons passed. A weaver who showed him how 100 crossed threads made one unbroken cloth. A stargazer who charted the sky with a patience the boy admired and did not copy. A map maker who measured distance by the swing of his own stride. Each teacher gave him something real. Each time the boy took it, thanked them, and walked on before it had time to settle into his hands. He grew from a boy into a young man on that road, and the young man believed, without ever quite deciding to believe it, that wisdom worked the way coins did. That you collected it, that enough of it, gathered from enough sources, would eventually add up to something whole. By the time his beard had come in fully, he had studied under 100 teachers. He could recite the blacksmith's rules for iron, and the weaver's rules for thread, and the monk's rules for silence, all in the same breath, none of them tangled with the others. Villagers who met him on the road were amazed. Here was a man who knew everything. He believed it too, for a while. But there is a difference between knowing 100 ways to do a thing and being able to do it even once. And the young man did not discover this difference until the day his satchel wore through at the strap, and he needed to mend it, and found that his hands did not know which teacher's method to trust. He tried the weaver's stitch. It felt wrong. He tried a binding the carpenter had once shown him for joints, not cloth, and it held for an hour, and then didn't. He sat with the broken strap in his lap for a long time, the way the monk had taught him to sit with anything, and understood, not all at once, but the way frost understands a window, filling it slowly from the edges, that he had spent years being taught, and no time at all learning to trust what he'd been taught. Every lesson still belonged to the teacher who had spoken it. None of them belonged to him. He walked after that without much purpose. The road doing what it always did, simply continuing until it brought him, he had not entirely meant it to, back to the village of the very first teacher he had ever had. The carpenter was old now, older than the young man remembered, moving slower, his hands spotted with the years between them. He was mending the gate at the edge of his own yard, a plain wooden gate, its lower hinge worked loose by seasons of weather. He looked up. He did not seem surprised. "You've grown," the old man said, and went back to the gate. The young man began to talk. He could not help himself. He spoke of iron and thread and stars and silence, of everything he had gathered on the road, laying it all out the way a merchant lays out wares, waiting to be admired. The old man listened without stopping his work. When the young man finally ran out of things to say, the old man straightened, looked at the gate, looked at him, and held out the hammer. "Finish it!" The young man took the hammer. It felt heavier than any hammer should. He looked at the loose hinge and found, waiting behind his eyes, 10 different ways to strike a nail, 8 different ways to measure the gap, 3 different philosophies of what a well-made thing owed the hand that made it. Each one arrived with a face attached, the blacksmith's, the carpenter's own, a mason's he'd known for one autumn and never seen again. His arm did not move, not because he lacked the knowledge, because he had too much of it, and none of it was his. The old man watched him stand there for a while. Then gently, he took the hammer back. He did not say anything about what he'd just seen. He simply turned to the gate and mended it himself, 3 unhurried strokes, the hinge settling into place the way it had settled 100 times before under those same hands. He held the finished gate open and looked at the young man and looked past him at the road. The same road, still winding on toward whatever village came next, patient as it had always been, in no hurry to be walked. Then back at the gate. "Choose." That was all he said. The young man stood between the two for a long moment. The road did not move. It never had. It would still be there tomorrow, and the day after, offering itself to him the way it always had, asking nothing, promising everything. He did not answer the old man. He did not need to. The next morning, the road still stretched toward another village. It would always be there. But for the first time, he turned away from it. He picked up the same hammer and began.
Thank you for listening, friend. And remember, don't wait to know everything before you even begin.